I'd like to bring this meeting to order of the Placer County Parks Commission at the North Lake Tahoe Event Center. And thank you all for coming up here and appreciating like the sixth sunny day in the last 3 months. So we're all in a good mood. Okay. Let's see, where are we? Phone and public service, boom, show is provided. Let's do the flag salute to get things going. And there's one over there. Oh, they moved it. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So, we'll do a roll call. I see Ann. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Ann Carpenter, District 9.
Dave Tucker, Area 3.
John Bergman.
Jim
Area
Ricker,
2.
Dutch Flat, and I don't know. what
6, seat 6.
And Verge Anderson, seat 4.
I will mention the button in front of you will trigger the green light for the mic.
I'm sorry?
Just playing with the mic, so
Oh,
the
just
pretty
play-
green button turns you on, and the red button
touch
turns
things.
you
I
off.
don't know what you're doing. Okay. So, we have a vacancy for seat 2. Got it. Looks like the first item is Election of Parks Commission Chair, Vice Chair, and Secretary. So,
So in doing a little bit of historical catch-up on the status, the bylaws of the Park Commission state that officers can hold their seat for 2 years. And so what happened over the last couple of years, you'll recall that Commissioner Holt was chair until July of 2021. When he vacated that seat, Commissioner Bergman took the chair position in September, was reelected to that chair position in January of 2022, and Commissioner Anderson moved from secretary up to vice chair. And Commissioner Carpenter is now secretary, and those elections for Anderson and Carpenter happened in January. So the bylaws are perhaps a little unspecified for this situation, but because you have not served a complete 2 years, I do believe you would be eligible if you wanted to serve another year term, or you could elect to, but it is open to the commission's discretion, I guess I should say, completely open to the commission's discretion who to serve as chair, vice chair, and secretary for this year. If you were to serve for one more year, then that would make you ineligible in 2024.
is this, and we're speaking calendar year?
Calendar year, yes.
Okay. Got it.
So position chair, vice chair, secretary expire December 31st, and they're reelected the first meeting of the calendar year, and this is the first meeting.
Oh, I'm with you. Okay, so it's calendar year, 3 years hence, because we've not had meetings. Gotcha. Or 3 months hence. Okay, so I'd like to open this for discussion. Commissioners?
I would be very supportive of the existing slate to move forward for another year.
I agree with that. I think, just having a couple of, September, you would have only had 2 meetings, and at the most. I'm good with, saying 2 full terms. You're allowed to have 2 full terms.
Gotcha. Any other comments? Okay, does anybody want to step up and take my job? Because I'm open to it if you want.
Are you willing to serve again?
Yeah,
Okay, nice.
I would be willing to serve again. I do know that the new state laws, or whatever that thing is, about you cannot have too many Zoom meetings for a public commission.
That whole thing. Yeah.
Which would make it kind of tough for me in some case. Like, it would have been tough this winter if we had as many meetings as we should have for me to get out of here. And not violate that unless there's some exception to the in-person rule due to rainy day. Do we have any ideas about that?
That's why you have a vice chair.
Yeah.
That's why we have a vice chair. Okay, good. But there's still something that a commissioner cannot attend a meeting more than 2 virtual meetings, is that it?
And I
Tracy?
apologize for not having the directive in front of me that was emailed to you
Read it.
earlier this year, but the long and the short of it, as memory serves, is that we've reverted back to in-person meetings.
Exclusively.
And there are requirements if you are remote, in that the remote location has to be part of the advertised agenda. So you may have the public show up at your house, in other words.
Right.
So that
Which
makes it a
would
little
Be
tricky.
noticed 2 weeks in advance, or
So-
what's the notice? I'm just kind of thinking, there's many times I'm not gonna pull that summit if I
Right.
don't have to. So,
So in that case, you would have not been able to be there effectively, unless you want to have a party at your house with nachos and stuff. then You
Right,
probably
right.
should turn it over to the vice chair.
right, well, we can just play that by ear, I guess.
You can,
at
yeah.
this
And
point,
given-
not worry too much about.
Given that the
grand
remaining
jury
meetings
In regards to this, okay.
for this year would be May, July, September, and November. Probably the only risky one would be November.
Right, gotcha, okay, so, if everybody's in favor of that,
With that being said, then I'll make a motion to, that John Bergman be reelected as chair, and Carpenter as secretary, and Virgil, and Virgil
vice.
Jensen as vice chair.
I'll second that.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
So fine. None opposed, motion passes. Okay, approval of agenda for tonight's meeting, March 16th.
I'll move approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting as presented.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a second from Virgil, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and back to the November 17th meetings. Do we have any issues with those minutes? Hearing none, can I get no discussion? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from November 17th?
I move that we approve the minutes from November 17th, 2022.
Okay, very good. We need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, and seconds that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, item 6, public comment. Public may address the commission on items not on this agenda. The public comment period is limited to 15 minutes, so please limit comments to 3 minutes per person. If all comments cannot be heard within the 15-minute time limit, the public comment period will be taken up at the end of the regular meeting. The commission is not permitted to take any action on items addressed under this item. Do we have any public comment? Yes, we do.
Oh, okay. I can wait.
Okay, do we have any, anybody else like to make a comment, or not initiate a comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll close public comment. Item 7, report from Director Administrator.
Andy Fisher, Parks Administrator, thank you very much. First and foremost, I want to introduce Josh Hunsinger. So with the departure of Steve Gayfield as our director, Josh has been appointed as the interim director of Parks and Open Space. Josh has been a longtime director at Placer County as the director of agricultural commissioner and sealer of weights and measures, and then in the last year or two has also taken on the regional forestry initiative of the county. So now has those 3 elements underneath him. So Josh?
Yeah, let's see. It's on, okay. Hey, good evening. My name is, as Andy mentioned, Josh Hunsinger, and I'm serving right now as the interim Parks Director for the county. And it's a pleasure to be with you. As Andy mentioned, I've been with the county for about 23 years, and about 11 of that as the department head, the agricultural commissioner and sealer of weights and measures. We also have oversight of the administrative county support of our farm advisor, a cooperative extension office, and then, about 2 years ago, added our regional forest health program as well to the slate of responsibilities. And so just a little bit about myself. I grew up in Grass Valley, and still live there to this day. I went to Cal Poly and got an agricultural degree there, and so kind of with a focus on the horticultural, botany and entomology was probably the focus within agriculture that I really concentrated on, and so hopefully that relates a little bit to parks operations and stuff. And then got a job in 2000 as a seasonal insect detection trapper with the county, and kind of worked my way up from there. So, yeah, I have a real passion for Placer County. Just love this county. It's always a fun day when I get on a road in Placer County that I haven't been on before, because it's a pretty unusual day. So my job's afforded me the opportunity to get out to just about every nook and cranny of the county, and it's a pretty. We live in a pretty special place, and really feel fortunate to do that. As you're aware, Steve Gayfield, the previous Parks and Open Space Director, departed kind of unexpectedly and suddenly back in late November. And so kind of mid-December, the county CEO called me and said, hey, guess what? So that's kind of how this came to be. And, I'm not sure. It could be a long-term thing, could be a relatively short-term thing. We're not totally sure on that, but for now, I'm committed to doing the best job I can to serve parks and open space. It's been really enjoyable. A lot of my duties right now are regulatory, and so parks is not regulatory. It's about providing really cool facilities for people to spend time outdoors, and that's just a really fun and enjoyable thing. So it's kind of fun to kind of wear that hat instead of the more regulatory hat. I'm enjoying that. Got a great team of really hardworking, dedicated staff. Being with the county as long as I have, I've worked with most of the leadership in the Parks Department at various points in time, but to really dig into things and see what they do on a day-to-day basis has been really cool, and I've been really impressed with how just dedicated and enthusiastic and hardworking the county park staff are. Just kind of my observations to date is there's a ton of opportunity. We're doing a lot of good things right now, but there's a lot of opportunity. One of the ones we're talking about is some opportunities around IT to make improvements that both provide a better customer service experience, to where, if people need to make a reservation or pay for something, or just get information on a particular facility, they can have a smoother process of doing that, and also just save a lot of time for staff and efficiency for staff so that they can do more important things with their time. So I think there's a huge opportunity around that. The big one countywide that we're focusing on the Western Placer County growth, and just the exponential growth in housing that we see over the next several decades coming up, and that's going to have a huge impact on parks operations. And we're doing a lot of work to say what exactly does that mean, and what does the future look like there. And then just the one, and even the agenda items we'll talk about tonight, just a lot of maintenance on existing facilities too. And that's just a tremendous, you build it, it's great for a while, but then it starts to age and the wear and tear starts catching up with it. And the longer you put off some of that maintenance, the more expensive it becomes. So those are kind of the three big themes I think we're looking at right now, just from my first couple months in the job, and look forward to hopefully doing some more good things in the time that I'm here. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you tonight, and thanks so much. Any questions for me? Or?
No, but thanks for coming up. And
All right, thank you.
What's going to happen to Weights and Measures? I don't know. I'm not going to buy gas in Placer County.
No,
anymore.
I'm still
You're not watching.
the agricultural commissioner and sealer of weights and measures. So I've got staff there out making sure that you get what you pay for.
Little stamp on the gas
Putting my name on all the gas pumps. That's right.
Okay. Well, thank you, Josh.
Did have three other quick items I wanted to update your board, your commission with. One is that the rental fees for our sports field, the update that you heard last fall made a recommendation on, the board adopted at the beginning of this year, January. It took effect March 1st, so we are now charging the first year's tier of new fees. They've increased from $2 an hour basic rate to now $13 an hour. The version that went to the board from your commission captured, I think, the basics of what you recommended, and the fees didn't change. We did catch some typos, some inconsistencies and things like that between your commission's vote and going to the board, so we were able to improve the tables, make sure we ironed out a few typos, and just some administrative language within it. But I think it captured virtually identical to what your commission recommended to the board in terms of how it'll roll out.
Gotcha. Now, and from what I recall, the most significant thing I remember was the fact that non-resident leagues primarily, I think it was softball leagues, wasn't it, or soccer? I can't remember. You know, we're gonna have to be paying a significantly higher. And the consideration was, what might that do? Have you guys, has that fleshed out at all? About guys going, wow, we're not gonna do it anymore, we're not gonna rent from you?
I don't know that we've had time yet that it's sunk in. We probably are gonna get a much better picture of how long-term it's gonna flesh out beginning this fall when we start to schedule for the next year,
Right.
in terms of which outside leagues, are
So
gonna
it's
still be
primarily the fall, it's
interested
not
when
like
they
all-
find out that they don't get credit that local leagues who are providing volunteer efforts
Right.
are gonna get.
And it was primarily soccer that had the most pressure on the fields.
It's been,
Soccer leagues?
it's been a lot. It's been, soccer, lacrosse, baseball, softball.
Yeah.
Dan, what's been your observation so far?
Yes.
And Tracy?
Yeah, it's mostly all of the leagues. It really, there hasn't been anything, there's not a huge consistency. It's fairly even. The one thing, I know there's been a lot of concern about out of area leagues, right? And honestly, we have so many leagues in Placer County and so few fields that they just don't get them. They don't even, I had one from Elk Grove want to come and build a league using our fields, and I can't accommodate that.
Right,
So, and that's pretty much where we're at. We get contacted fairly regularly by people who want to start new leagues in Placid County, Granite Bay, Rockland, Loomis. And, we let them know, go ahead and start your league, but we can't promise you any time right now because our fields are just, from the time the kids are out of school till dark, the fields are packed, and then all summer long also. So, and then we try to leave a little bit of opening on Sundays for walk-on time for families and stuff like that. So there's not any opportunity for outside leagues to come in and use it because we just don't have the capacity. So,
Gotcha.
no, that's it.
Okay. All right.
Next thing I wanted you to know is that the Hidden Falls Regional Park Trails Expansion Project is beginning to move ahead on the ground. Board of Supervisors last month approved the plans and specifications for the well that will serve the new trailhead off of Bell Road that we call Twilight Ride. It's the name of the property when we bought it. It won't stay that name, but it's been our colloquial name since we bought it. We expect that to follow pretty quickly next month with an approval of the plans and specs and a bid for the larger parking lot project. So if that's all approved, it could be under construction this summer. We're also keeping folks updated. We'll let you know as we have some informational meetings to give neighbors and so forth updates on where we're at. We want to keep folks informed on the entirety of the project, how we've listened to their concerns and things like that.
I mean, at this point, you haven't had any public meetings.
We haven't we took notes about, a year and a half ago on what neighbors were concerned about with the plans, what they were concerned about with the opening of the project. And those concerns consisted of signage and wayfinding, emergency access, vegetation management, fire risk reduction, all those kind of things. And so we've been working in parallel on all those things, looking forward to the opening.
Right, but you haven't had any public meetings that have to deal with during the course of construction, which we're in now.
Right, we have not.
okay.
Right. Yeah, so, but we're beginning to, so as we go to the board for these milestones that they have to approve, like the approval of plans and specs and authorization of bids, the public, there will be some more awareness. I know even the local paper picked up on the board's approval of drilling a well, so
Right.
folks are interested and we want to keep them updated, and we'll keep you updated as well.
Good, thank you.
And then finally, a trail that we toured a couple of years ago that was under construction, a year ago, I think, the trail, so the extension of the Dry Creek Trail that runs near Dry Creek Park from Willerga Road to Cookriolo Road today, the extension of that from Cookriolo west about 3 miles to Watt Avenue has been completed by the Riola Vineyards Development. We have accepted ownership and maintenance responsibility for that trail. There's one more thing that needs to happen before we can open it to the public. They had to do some sewer work for the subdivision next door, so a portion of the trail had to be dug up, and that contractor will be fixing it. So as soon as they fix that section, we'll probably be having some kind of a acknowledgement. I'm not sure if it'll be a full grand opening, but at least some fanfare to let folks know that it is open and they can now use the trail over to Watt Avenue. Eventually, that trail will go through the Placer Vineyards development into Sacramento County at Gibson Ranch and all the way to Discovery Park, so.
Up to Natomas.
Gotcha. Okay, is that it for what we've got to talk about now?
That is it.
Okay, let's go to item 8, park dedication fee and fund analysis report.
So you have that report in front of you, I believe. Just wanted to draw your attention to a few of the items. You can see the account has been steadily building up. And under fee area number 1, North Tahoe and Martis Valley, if you take note of that one, that'll be the subject of the first action item tonight. It'll be a request for park dedication fees from that account. And I also wanted you to be aware, I do expect we will be putting together requests over the course of this year for some of the projects that we'll be working on, some of the projects we're aware of, some of the projects that have been in the works for a long time, and requesting some of these fees be appropriated to projects. As you know, these fees do have to be appropriated to a project within 5 years of payment. We've had in mind some of these projects for quite a while, but I think we do need to get them appropriated, and we'll be working on that. And for the Tahoe City, area number 2, we're looking at ways to fund the replacement of the turf and replacement of the playground at the Olympic Valley Park. Tahoe City PUD also has some projects on their plate. And for both area number 1 and 2, we have the Resort Triangle Trail that will always need matching funds for grants and things like that as we do phase by phase of the Martis Trail. Forest Hill, area number 4, has a subcommittee in Forest Hill and uses that money to kind of check off on their list improvements within Forest Hill Park, because that is the main facility that is funded by those fees. Once we find out how bids come in and how things are going at Hidden Falls, area number 5 may need some additional funding for Hidden Falls. We're not sure yet. That's area number 5. Auburn Recreation District does have, they just got the lion's share of the fees that are in that account for their 24-acre park. Just a few months ago, that was approved. So those are the projects that we know of that would look toward Area 5. In Loomis Basin, we do need to do some improvements to Loomis Park. We have a drainage ditch between the parking lot and the fields that's been eroding substantially over the years. So we do need a project that will both correct the drainage and enlarge the parking lot. So if we pipe the drainage, we'll get more parking out of that. So that's a project we have in mind that could draw on those Loomis accounts. We are expecting, if we go down to area number 10, we're expecting an application from the Eureka Union School District for renovation of some of their fields, which would be a use agreement similar to the Newcastle agreement that you supported last year, where we give construction money to a renovation project and the school district agrees to keep it open to the public and rent it to leagues over time, and they maintain it. It'd be a similar agreement to that. Dry Creek, Area 13, Dry Creek West Placer, we do have the completion of Dry Creek Park, a whole nother phase of Dry Creek Park that will draw on those funds. We've also hearing requests from the community for another trailhead off of Cook-Riolo Road. So those are the projects we're aware of that could draw on Area 13 funds. In area number 14, we have, the county just relinquished the library property next to the park, and there was a small tot lot there. And so the county no longer has a tot lot adjacent to Applegate Park, so we'll be looking at a project to build a tot lot that could use some of those funds. We will be using, under area number 15, Ophir Newcastle, we will be approaching the board to use almost all of the funds, the $385,000 for the Newcastle field. That should be going forth to the board, that recommendation on March 28th. Then finally, Area 16, the main project that is drawn on those funds is the Emigrant Trail. So I just wanted to kind of give you an idea on what projects we'll be looking to draw out of those funds, and we all will be looking to appropriate some of those funds in the not-too-distant future.
Andy, have there been, I'm trying to think of any allocation from Area 16, Serene Lakes. Has any money been spent out of that fund recently? Was Royal Gorge involved in that?
We spent $300,000 out of that account to support the purchase of Royal Gorge. It was a
Yeah.
$15 million purchase, so it was
Right.
proportionately small. But we did, we supported it with $300,000. That gave us trail easements through that property, of which we have built the first phase of the Emigrant Trail. And then we've appropriated some of the funds for some of the studies and the environmental review for the Emigrant Trail. It was also, the Emigrant Trail has also been supported by about $750,000 to us and another $250,000 to the Truckee Donner Land Trust out of the TOT, the Transient Occupancy Tax Capital Grant Program over the last 4 or 5 years.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And we do expect to need at least some of the money out of Area 16 for future phases of the Emigrant Trail, matching funds particularly to grants.
All right.
Are there any parks at the Serene Lake area? You know,
No, there
county
has
community
been,
parks, ball fields, anything like that?
there's been intermittent requests, difficult to find a place for one. I think we've
Properties.
advocated that they look maybe at the Kingvale School, something like that, where there be a partnership there, opportunity. But we haven't heard, I think, kids grow up and the parents who are advocating them tend to, only advocate for a few years and they move on. And so we haven't heard much of a demand for parks in Serene Lakes for probably 5-6 years.
Yes.
All right. I think there's a visitor center there though, right?
I'm not sure.
Trying to, anyway.
I don't think there's anything in the
Museum.
Serene Lakes.
No.
Is the restaurant still there?
I don't know.
I just know I had, clients up there that I
Yeah, yeah.
took care of their spas.
Okay. And of course, just for the audience benefit, number one is the park dedication fee that's specific to North Tahoe. Number two is a park dedication fee that's specific to Tahoe City. So there's a distinction about where this money is coming from. And North Tahoe also includes Martis Valley. So the development monies that bumped up this dollar amount, a lot of it came from Lahontan / the stuff in Martis. What's the place about? You guys don't know. Somebody out
Schaefer's
here-
Mill, no,
No, Martis Camp.
artist camp.
Okay, so you got Lahontan Martis Camp was the most significant input of cash into this fund in the last 12, 15 years, whenever it was. And the district has taken, North Tahoe PUD has taken advantage of funding out of of Fund One. Most recently, I think, for renovation of the turf field up at North Tahoe Regional Park. And let's see, Tahoe City uses it, Truckee River Trail, West Shore, some of the bike trails going down the West Shore, I think, has been tapped from this same fund. You might know better than I.
Truckee River Trail, that's correct, yeah, for
Right.
the rehabilitation.
Gotcha. Okay. So, thank you, Andy. That's an analysis report. So action item leaves me, item 9, number 1, park dedication fee request is $750 from North Tahoe Public Utility District from Fund 1. And we have Brad, General Manager, present to us. Brad Johnson.
I need to excuse myself before he starts. Excuse me.
Okay.
I'd like to do a brief introduction of Brad. Brad is the general manager of North Tahoe Public Utility District. And the item before you today does contemplate use of funds from Area Number 1. A little more history on how Area Number 1 has been used. There was an appropriation, I believe, of $875,000 or $845,000 for the renovation of their field. That was 3 or 4 years ago. There was an intentional swap of money to move more park dedication fees into the field project and some of the TOT funding into the Martis Trail. So the two major local development funds, available pots of money for local development that are locally generated, are park fees and the transient occupancy tax. The transient occupancy tax can generate anywhere in good years, $3 million up to $6 million a year. It's a revolving account, it's a bed tax. It's derived from, I believe 8% of short-term rental fees are collected countywide, and there's a surcharge up to 12% in the eastern Placer County. That goes from roughly Sugar Bowl east. We've used some transient occupancy tax money for Immigrant Trail. We've used it for Martis Trail. The mission of those two funds somewhat overlaps. The mission of the transient occupancy tax funds, TOT funds, is to carry out the goals of the tourism master plan. So there's an emphasis on tourism, whereas park fees are to meet the recreational needs of new residents. And so for that reason, in the case of the field, with the field being more local and regional serving, residential serving, we put some more money into the field and some more of the transient occupancy tax money into the trail. This year, there was another infusion of $2 million to North Star Community Service District to support the Martis Trail. So there has been some pretty heavy funding of TOT into the trail projects. And for that reason, at least in part, we've looked and staff is recommending that although this is a pretty good sized chunk of money out of this account, that we're recommending the expenditure into the courts at North Tahoe Regional Park. So with that, we turn it over to Brad to introduce the project itself.
Thank you, Andy. For the record, Brad Johnson, General Manager. Chairman Bergman, members of the commission, thank you for your time and consideration today. Our full application is contained in your packet. I have a brief PowerPoint intended to go over the highlights. So we are here with a $750,000 request to support our tennis and pickleball facility in the North Tahoe Regional Park. The project consists of 6 new dedicated pickleball courts with fencing, netting, shade structures, lighting, as well as the reconstruction of 3 existing tennis courts. The whole facility originally constructed in 1976, and except for kind of ongoing maintenance, this is the first major capital reinvestment that's been proposed for the facility in quite some time. The packet shows a number of detailed photos relative to the existing condition, cracking court surface, heaving, etc. It is time to do a comprehensive rebuild, and that's what we're proposing to do. This isn't a light rehab. These are 2 entirely new courts built in the footprint of the existing courts. Construction is scheduled for summer of 2023. The packet goes pretty extensively, but pickleball is seeing explosive growth, not just here in the basin and the Tahoe-Truckee region, but nationwide. It is one of the fastest growing sports in the country, and demand in North Lake Tahoe currently outstrips supply of available pickleball courts. The Olympic Valley courts, extremely popular. The single pickleball court set down in Kilner Park, also extremely popular. This would pretty radically upgrade the inventory in the North Lake Tahoe area, or the Tahoe-Truckee area. There we go. Project location, North Tahoe Regional Park. And here you guys are visiting these courts at your last tour of the regional park facility.
Sure.
And that crack's probably bigger.
That crack has since grown a hair. The North Tahoe Regional Park, 128 acres of district-owned and operated open space, both kind of formal active recreation and passive recreation opportunities throughout that regional park. Great photo of our recently completed and your recently funded synthetic turf field. We are trying our mightiest this winter to keep that field cleared. It's been an adventure for us, but
you can do it this year. You can do it any year.
That's right. Normally more successful than this year, but I am proud to say that the teams are out practicing on it. Although it is not entirely clear just yet, we hope to have it by next week, depending on the next significance of this next storm coming in. A number of other ball fields, 3 formal softball, baseball diamonds, 1 kind of multi-use natural turf field, disc golf course, dog parks, playgrounds, picnic sites, and the community garden. Hiking and biking in the wintertime. We groom 4 miles of Nordic trails, and of course the synthetic turf park or synthetic turf field gets cleared. We also groom the community sled hill. Regional Park Tahoe Treetop Adventure Course draws visitors from around the world, and the regional park sees an estimated 100,000 visitors annually. Community input on this project dating back to 2019, had a number of listening sessions. In 2020, the first phase of the active recreation study that Valerie Murnane and I will be presenting to you at the next item. So over 600 community members participated in virtual meetings and focus groups. 16% of those participants specifically noted the need for dedicated pickleball facility. And so not just multi-use, but dedicated pickleball courts. In 2021, we completed our community recreation programming survey. Again, a lot of feedback about a desire for pickleball-specific programming. In order for us to do pickleball-specific programming, we need some pickleball-specific facilities. And then in 2022, our board of directors, along with our Recreation Park Commission meetings, authorized our design contract with Lloyd Consulting Group. A lot of public feedback through the design process to come up with the final design that we are proposing to you today. So what is in that final design? As I said, 3 dedicated, renovated, or fully reconstructed, really, tennis courts, a reconstructed ball wall, and then 6 dedicated pickleball courts. Strong access via ADA pathways from both sides, and then the project includes a rebuild of the existing stairs to the courts. A bit more formal of the layout, the square footage of the existing 2 tennis court facility allows really first-rate dedicated pickleball facilities. 7-foot side court overruns, along with central gathering areas with shade sails and benches, fencing all the way, 6-foot fencing all the way around the facility with interior perimeter fencing to prevent ball migration onto other courts. We basically, looked at industry best practices and really designed the facility around those. The same goes for the tennis facility with those 3 dedicated tennis courts. Some of the potential options: a enhanced plaza area. So right now our plaza up there is largely just kind of compacted, decomposed granite and a gazebo. We have the ability to do a pavered plaza, enhanced landscaping and hardscaping to really activate this space for socialization. Mm-hmm. It's in a great location that is adjacent to the dog park. So whether we're doing tennis and pickleball type events or dog-focused pickleball events, it's a really nice community gathering area for socialization, formal programming, etc. And then over on the east side of that facility, a bit of an enhancement to the entryway of those pickleball facilities. So what are we asking for today? So our $750,000 request, you'll note in your packet, our engineer's estimate has grown since we've submitted this application. That's kind of the name of the game in the bidding environment right now. But what we are asking for is, in essence, an opportunity to plus the project up. Depending on our bid results, the district believes it is in a position with support of that $182,000 TOT grant to fund the base level construction, which includes all that site prep and grading, an asphalt base, the acrylic court surface, netting and structures, the site finishes, the court fencing, and then replacement of that stairway. So what your $750,000 contribution could do is take this project from good to great, or perhaps great to fantastic. And what we're proposing to include in that is a sport lighting conversion to LED. That would take the existing court lighting from slightly below recreation standards all the way to club standards. So a strong enhancement of on-court lighting. Our photometrics from the design engineer, it's pretty incredible. It's very court specific, so very little light migration or light pollution outside the court surfaces. So while we get a great upgrade, we're not spoiling the neighborhood, if you will. The single biggest spend, and in my opinion, the single biggest impact of the project is going from an asphalt court to a post-tension concrete court slab. Not only does that enhance the playing experience, but most importantly, it takes the assumed or the design life of this facility from 20 to 25 years, and perhaps that's maybe a west slope design life. In the freeze-thaw cycle, we'll often see cracking emerge in our asphalt within 10 years. That's something that ends up being cancer to a court surface. You fight that continuously, but it once it opens up, it's eventually the death knell. What post-tension concrete will do is take that design life from 20 to 25 to 40 to 50 plus years, because you bridge that freeze-thaw cycle. You have this fantastic thickened concrete slab that's then tensioned, and it really bridges any of that freeze-thaw potential, as well as any underlying geotechnical issues that didn't get completely taken care of in construction. So the value we see is not just in the playability, but it is really in the structural life of this enhancement. This will be multi-generational, if you will, if we're able to achieve this. And then the final is that enhanced plaza and hardscape. So, your contribution would be a real plus up. We're prepared to execute the project. The facility is truly at the end of its life. The North Tahoe PUD is committed to seeing this project through. With your help, we can really make that multi-generational enhancement as opposed to a more, kind of common enhancement or existing level enhancement. One thing that has slipped slightly from the packet, in addition to that growth in construction estimate, is our project schedule. So given the snowfall, our courts and the regional park is buried. So a May 1 construction start is unlikely. So we've allowed the project to slip a bit. That has allowed us to sharpen our pencils on the design, really tune it up to try and get the best possible bid. We expect to bid late this month, early April, with award occurring in May, with the goal of mobilizing in June and likely running through the end of the Tahoe construction season.
Brad, may I ask you a question relative to the bid? Have you already put out for bids?
We have not yet. We're still tuning it up. We expect to advertise in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Gotcha. And for that kind of cement footing, foundation, how many people are capable of doing that? Industry.
Yeah, we will likely attract bidders from, obviously from the Reno area as well as potentially Sacramento. That's one of the things that we're spending some time on, is tightening up the specifications for the PTC or post-tension concrete portion. It is a bit of a specialty, but we're confident that area concrete guys would be able to do this with some really strong oversight from our design and project management team. We do expect to get good interest, and then the way we've bid this is each of these in the green box is being bid as an additive alternate. So we're going to bid and execute the base bid, which is that blue box, and then depending on those bid results, depending on your willingness to support this project, we anticipate being able to execute those additive alternates.
Gotcha. Okay.
So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or facilitate any additional discussion. That upper left-hand photo is a photo from our tennis courts about 20 years ago, and in its youth, perhaps. Well, in this case, maybe middle age. Upper right-hand corner is Kilner Park, and then that's the IVGID facility across the state line on the bottom there.
Gotcha. Do any of these guys, does Kilner or IVGID have that cement?
We would be the only post-tension concrete facility in the region. There are a few down the hill in Reno, obviously a number along the west slope, but this would be a first for the basin and for the Truckee area.
So our climate is not a negative for using that product.
It's a positive for using that climate.
Because we have longer life.
Down the hill or elsewhere, post-tension concrete is largely viewed as a play enhancement. And so you see PTC in high-end private tennis clubs and in areas where it's really focused on the enhancement of playability, the playing experience. up here or in other like Midwestern climates, you see PTC very much focused on enduring the climate, the freeze-thaw cycle that really
Gotcha.
eats through that asphalt surface.
Gotcha. Commissioners, any questions?
No, just a comment. Down in the Citrus Heights area,
Mm-hmm.
they were building homes like that with post-tension concrete and with good results. But
Yeah.
it's over highly expansive soils.
It's a maturing technology. The industry's starting to put it underneath track and field facilities as well. And so it comes with a cost premium, but some of the subgrade prep, et cetera, is beginning to bring it towards parity, but I'm not sure it'll ever truly be at parity with an asphalt court.
And then the surface is renewable how frequent, how often?
Yeah, so the acrylic surface is often, depending on your wear and tear, that one of the advantages in PTC, you don't have to recoat as often. It's more about the wear and tear that occurs. What often drives recoating is your cracking. And so as your asphalt begins to fail, it breaks through that acrylic surface. You then have to patch the asphalt and then recoat the entire court. So if we go with PTC, we expect recoating maybe every 5 to 7 years. We don't anticipate doing snow removal on the acrylic courts. We don't get enough demand for outdoor pickleball in our winters up here. So we expect our acrylic court surface, if we go PTC, to have a really long life. Over at IVGID, they are recoating often every year because of wrestling with that cracking in their asphalt courts.
Oh, I see. Got it. Okay. Commissioners, anything else? No? I got another one. So with the popularity of pickleball particularly, tennis never had to wrestle with reservation policies or anything else. With this happening, obviously we have, how many residents we got? 2,000 ratepayers, 2,500 ratepayers?
In full-time year-round, yes.
Yeah.
As the summer influx, it grows quite a bit.
And from a prioritization standpoint, it sounds like probably you are going to have to deal with this as far as a reservation policy and keeping track on what's up on there, who's,
Yeah,
we do, there is a parking policy where residents get to park for nothing. However, visitors pay, what, $5
yes.
at this point. But I can imagine that still would not temper the out of area demand for these courts. $5 is not going to intimidate them.
Yep. So we're going to play it by ear in terms of how initially we anticipate going on a first come, first served basis, seeing how it goes, and then gauging utilization and popularity. The district has recently invested in new reservation software. We've moved to CivicRec. That is an online reservation process. So should we make the decision to move towards reservations, it's a matter of truly just flipping a switch.
And that's what's being used here?
Correct.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. No more comments?
I do believe you have some public comment as well on the item.
Okay, yeah. I would like to invite that.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. My name's John Radabold, and I'm a year-round resident of Kings Beach and longtime tennis player. And I go back to the days when George was here. If you guys know who he was just a local guy who was up there every day.
George Galante.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, George. He's a great guy. So, and then I'm not sure if anyone was at the commission meeting where all the people were here and all our friends who now I know are down in Baja, California right now playing pickle and tennis because I just came from there. But anyway, and what I really was happy about at the last meeting was the fact that the pickle people and the tennis people really agreed on this layout with keeping the 3 courts up top as tennis and then the 2 down below and everyone was agreed on the layout that Brad showed. There's enough pickle down there at the lower court, and then the 3 tennis is really needed, so that was really great. And I'll just speak to what Brad is saying. You know, I'm from the Bay Area, and they have both the concrete and the asphalt, and there is a big difference. And it's only at the public courts that you get the lesser quality court, and playing on the concrete courts is much better. And of course, you can see the condition of them now, and the cracks are just interminable. So I guess that's all I have to say. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, John.
Hello, Commissioners. My name's Kimberly Brown. I'm a Carnelian Bay resident, and I want to thank you for considering the $750,000 request in order to be able to reconstruct the tennis courts and construct the pickleball courts. I'm very passionate in favor of these improvements. Tennis is just an incredible way to promote community vitality. I know that I have made some of my lifelong friends through tennis, and it's what made me mentally strong as everything was shut down during COVID. I have a graduate degree in kinesiology, so I know the value of regular exercise and getting out there and moving. I am very happy that this new pickleball revolution has started, because it allows people to be able to get excited about exercising, to get off their couch and not view Netflix or their Instagram, but be able to get together and do a very fun recreational activity. One of the things about pickleball that I love the most is the laughter that you hear coming from the pickleball courts. So I truly believe that parks make life better. I hope you'll vote yes on this great $750,000 request.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Valerie Murnane. I'm Director of Parks and Recreation for the Tahoe City Public Utility District. I'm just here to express our support for this project. As you can see in the top right-hand picture, that's a picture of the Kilner Park pickleball courts, and that actually came out of a tennis court. We used to have 2 tennis courts, and we used to have portable pickleball nets, and the demand was such that we ended up turning one of our tennis courts into 4 pickleball courts. The demand is still there. Not only are our 4 courts used, we allow the pickleball community to use the other tennis court to set up 4 more courts. And I'll have to tell you that the demand is high. That is not enough for the community. So seeing this project, which is an excellent project, it's really great to see the shade, the extra surroundings, what they've planned for those pieces. The separation of tennis and pickleball, I think, is a great idea for NTPUD. But ultimately, the demand is so high that we in the Tahoe City Public Utility District, we cannot handle the demand. So this is a great project. Certainly, it'll take the pressure off us a little bit, but I know the demand is in this community as well. So, and also the rehab of the tennis. When you start to talk to the population, tennis is not dead. There's a lot of tennis players who are transitioning to pickleball, but there's definitely a tennis community out there. So to see the rehab of the courts is excellent also. So we support the project. Thank you.
Thank you. So, excuse me, how many pickleball courts do you have in Tahoe City? And does the high school have temporary or restriping pickleball courts?
The high school does not have pickleball. So the only 2 other, so we have pickleball 4 courts at Killen Park, and I believe there are 3 at the Olympic Valley Park. Am I correct in saying that, Andy?
That is correct, there's 3.
Olympic Valley, right.
And it's not, there is a lot of waiting around. And as one of the speakers tonight mentioned, I should know better. As one of the speakers mentioned, it is really a community sport. And it's one of the types of sports that everyone wants to do together. So scheduling a morning session and an afternoon session is not ideal in the pickleball world because of the social component. So when you're gathering up to 80 pickleball players at once, you can put 16 on a court because you play in doubles, and they rotate through. So it's ideal to have a lot of pickleball courts together, so we put the 4 together. So it's great to see Brad's project with so many courts together because of that social component. So with the 3 at Olympic Valley Park and the 4 at Al Park, that actually is, it splits up the group, which is okay, but to have this extra facility will really help. Grouping people together is important in the sport. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else got anything to say about this? No? No more public comment? Okay, can I get a motion?
I move that we recommend to the Board of Supervisors to approve the use of park dedication fees in the amount of $750,000 from Recreation Area Number 1 for tennis and pickleball court facility improvements and construction.
All right, okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, further discussion?
Nope.
Do we? Yeah, it's still not back. Okay, well, I will just proceed. Can, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, so there you go, PUD.
Go spend some money. Oh, it's already spent, isn't it?
To invite Brad and Valley back up for this next item, but as brief introduction, you will quickly recall and recall vividly the work that your commission did with us on the Park and Trail Master Plan since 2016. And in our surveys, in our work in the Tahoe Basin area, a couple of the things that stood out as big desires of folks are larger amenities like an indoor pool, like a recreation center. And so we cataloged those within our Park and Trail Master Plan as partner agency projects. And what we acknowledge is that they're great ideas, but within the scope of our countywide Park and Trail Master Plan, we really didn't have the ability, it wasn't within the scope to auger down in and look at the viability and the detailed planning and design of some of those larger amenities within the basin. And so as our plan began to wrap up and finalize, Tahoe City Public Utility District Board, along with the North Tahoe Public Utility District Board, got together and initiated a needs assessment, Tahoe active recreation facility and needs assessment to really tear off of our plan and get down into the details of what some of these larger amenities might look like and how feasible they are. And this is a presentation I've asked Brad and Valley, a very similar presentation to what the Board of Supervisors heard last fall, an update on where they're at in that process right now. So I thought you guys would be interested, and this is an informational item. Brad and Valley, thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Chair Bergman, members of the commission, for the record, Brad Johnson, General Manager, North Tahoe PUD. I'm here with Valley Murnane, Director of Recreation and Parks, or Parks and Recreation at your district, of the Tahoe City Public Utility District. We're going to present to you on our active recreation facility needs assessment, the progress we are making, what it's all about. Andy did a great job of introducing it. This is intended to build upon the Trails and Parks Master Plan coming from Placer County. Those needs that were couched so nicely and what we specialize in, local recreation and parks, local parks and recreation, and doing a deeper dive in what the opportunities for the future could be. This is not a passive recreation or a trails master plan. That is well planned in the Tahoe Truckee region, particularly within the basin. And so this is really a deep dive on active recreation. And how we define active recreation is on the bottom of that slide there. Structured individual or team activities and programs that require the use of special facilities. Fields, courses, equipment. It's youth sports. It's adult and senior sports. And so adult and senior active recreation is the type of stuff we're studying. So the 3 major purposes of this partnership: identify our community's demographics, needs, and interests and attitudes concerning active recreation programming and facilities. What do they think of what we have? What do they think that we should have? And who are they? Guide future decisions regarding capital investment in both our existing facilities. Where should we be prioritizing reinvestment? And then new active recreation facilities. Where are those gaps? Where is the industry going? And then guiding those future improvements to recreation programming within our shared service area. We're sister organizations, and more our community doesn't see that dividing line. And so one of the purposes of this assessment was, how can we do more together? Looking at our shared inventory of facilities as opposed to looking at the North Tahoe PUD and looking at the TC PUD. We share a high school, we share a school district, we share a middle school, we share the lake. There is no reason that we can't be cross-programming and thinking of that shared inventory of facilities rather than replicating those facilities on each side of the boundary line. So that was one of the deep dives of this study. Phase 1 was back in 2020. This was a self-funded partnership between NTPUD and TCPUD, and this was really focused on those community priorities. We did a pretty comprehensive survey, 600 community members participated, and some of the priorities rising to the top: maintain and expand programs, leagues, and activities. So kind of build upon what we're already doing. That came up 45% of the time. Just behind that, build a swimming pool. We live on a lake community, but at the moment, in both of our service districts, there's no public facility within our boundaries for the children of our community to learn to swim. So here we are on the shores of Lake Tahoe, but no safe, controlled environment for those kids to learn to swim. Build a new multi-use community recreation center came up 151 times, 28% of the respondents. Add, upgrade, maintain outdoor courts and fields. Build a skate park and pump track came up. And then down at the bottom, full-sized ice rink for ice hockey and ice skating. Phase 2 kicked off in 2021. This is a three-way partnership: North Tahoe City PUD, North Tahoe PUD, and Placer County via the TOT CAP grant program kicked in $75,000 for the study. It was a planning level analysis and assessment of the existing programming and infrastructure, prepared recommendations for outdoor facility improvements and fields. So those are our fields, courts, skate park, bocce. This is the outdoor amenities. And then a very deep dive on a potential aquatic and recreation center that included high-level cost estimates. To determine potential capital construction cost, $71 million, with an annual operating subsidy of $2 million across those two districts. It examined and identified opportunity sites, the biggest one being the Placer County-owned Firestone property. That is a deed-restricted recreation purpose parcel that splits our boundary lines adjacent to the high school and middle school. It is a wonderful location for a potential recreation and aquatic center. But also examined was the North Tahoe Regional Park and Tahoe City's TCCC facility right near downtown. We examined potential funding options. So neither district is in a position to fund $71 million in capital costs, nor fund a recurring operating subsidy of $2 million. So that would mean going out to the electorate and looking at a potential property tax, special assessments, or the formation of a new CFD to fund this facility. Throughout this process, we conducted 2 joint public board workshops, one in the fall of 2022 and then one in February of 2023, where these findings were discussed with both boards and feedback was solicited from both the board and the public. Deep dive on that aquatic and recreation center programming. It would include a gymnasium with an 84 by 50 court. That's a high school size court, and then it would allow 2 middle school cross courts as well. 4,000 square foot fitness facility with exercise bikes, etc. A large group exercise facility. This is where exercise programming could occur with capacity for 30 to 35 people. Obviously the locker rooms, support amenities. It would also include an indoor adventure hill or track. And so it's not just a flat walking track. What is proposed is more of an adventure track that would allow kind of changes in elevation. It's a little more interesting. One of the challenges in our community in winters like this, it is really difficult to get out and get your steps in. People come to our regional park just to walk the plowed trails, and even in those trails, you've got icy conditions. So one of the things that rose to the top was a safe place for people simply to get out and stretch their legs when their neighborhoods are buried like they are. A party wet classroom. This is a place where art instruction could occur, birthday parties could occur, as well as swim instruction, lifeguard instruction, often adjacent to the aquatics facility. And then diving into the aquatics facility, we're talking about 2 pools. One is a dedicated 6-lane, 25-yard lap pool that would be at a lower temperature, and it would very much be focused on lap swimming. And then a larger leisure pool at 9,400 square feet with 3,600 square feet of water. That would be both, fun swim time, kids playing, interactive splash play, slide, etc. But then importantly, a warm water, often described as a therapy pool, but it's a body of water that's intended for youth to learn to swim in, so the water is warmer. They're not shivering or in wetsuits like you see over at the Ivgid Rec Center. Senior aqua size, those types of facilities. So, right there?
Yeah.
So it is not just a water park. It has water play features, but importantly, it also has those exercise and learn to swim facilities. That allows us to go with a slightly smaller, dedicated lap swim facility.
For a second?
Yeah.
What temperature do you say the lap pool, what temperature would you keep that at as opposed to the leisure pool?
Ooh, do you know that number off the top of your head?
65 degrees at the lap and 80 at the leisure?
I don't know the specific temperatures, so I'm reluctant to quote.
Okay,
but typically it's a 4 to 5 degree difference, and that
That's all,
seems
really.
small, but it is noticeable for when you are doing lap swimming, you are truly exercising.
Oh, yeah.
And so you'll get hot in the warmer water pool. Whereas if you're doing splash play or you're doing low intensity exercise like swim lessons or aqua size, your lips turn blue in that lap swim temperature. And so in a shared facility like the Ivgid Rec Center has, you have the water temperature wars, where you have the lap swimmers insisting on that lower temperature, and you have the moms and seniors insisting on those higher temperatures.
Dealt with that before.
And it, it's like skiing and snowboarding of old, tennis and pickleball of old. Those two parties never seem to agree on what the right temperature is. So the solution is to do what we're doing in our tennis and pickleball facility. You build dedicated facilities, and that's really the industry best practice. So dedicated lap swimming, and then dedicated, generically described as leisure pool, but it's much more than just leisure pool.
So they
It's
would
much
have,
more than just play.
each one would have its own pumps and filtration
That's
system?
exactly right. Its own heater, its own pumps and
Right.
filtration. They truly are separately managed bodies of water. They often share the common atrium space, the natatorium space, but the bodies of water themselves are separate units. So what's next? Phase 3. Completing phase 2 will include reviewing the results of with the stakeholders and public, basically road showing. This is one of those, road showing these findings, potential costs, et cetera, soliciting general high-level feedback, but then going into a much more comprehensive phase 3, which is conducting surveys and polling. Do you support this type of investment? Are you supportive of funding this type of investment? And then investigating the ballot measure strategy. When is the best time, if there is polling support behind a ballot measure, when is the best time to go out and do it? What does that wording look like? What type of vehicle is the community most likely to support? If we're going to go this route, we want to ensure we are successful. So for those veterans of the Tahoe Basin, the North Tahoe, Tahoe City Rec Center approach, this has been considered 2 times before in the last 30 plus years. Once in the early 90s, and then again in the 2000s, and in the 2000s it actually went out to ballot and was defeated. So if we are going to consider this, we don't want to just rush out to the ballot. We really want to test the community, engage support. The support is not there, then it's not going to be worth the effort plowing through this. If the support is there, we want to leverage that polling data to understand, how much, what type, and in what shape and form does that support, so that if we go out, we help ensure success. Also in phase 3, design of an operating entity and refining the operating model. This would be a shared facility between TCPUD and NTPUD. what does that look like? What does that operating model look like? Is it a JPA? Is it one entity operating and then contract or agreement with the other? That needs to be refined and understood, because if we're going to go out to the public wants to understand who's going to run the thing, how do we hold them accountable, so on and so forth. And then, most importantly, the formation of a community advocacy group. PUD enthusiasm alone will not drive success in this. It really needs to be a grassroots, ground-up effort from the public saying, yes, we want this, and we're going to help drive people to the polls. We're going to advocate on behalf of this, and that we're going to do the things that the PUDs as government entities cannot successfully do or cannot legally do out in the public. So there's a pretty comprehensive phase 3 coming out. Both boards have indicated to district staff that they want to move forward with this. So we're in the RFP development phase for this phase 3 to go out and find a consulting team to help us with the polling, help us with that ballot measure strategy, and help us design that operating entity, and putting a little more meat on the bones. So more to come. And then, as always, you can find ongoing updates at the project's website, northlaketahoeactiverecreation.org. With that, Valley and I are happy to answer any questions or facilitate any discussion.
Interesting. What do you got?
I've got one. Are you familiar with the Amusement Ride Act? And that water on slides turns it into an amusement ride, and it falls underneath that regulation?
Interesting.
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll take a look at that. One of the team members, North Tahoe PUD's new Director of Recreation Parks and Facilities, Amanda Oberacher, was a critical member of Truckey's team in the development of their new natatorium facility. So we'll leverage her expertise as well as the consulting team. But I really appreciate the feedback in that regard.
And speaking of Truckee, what's this projected project at Firestone? How does that scale compared to Truckee's rec center?
Yeah, it's a little bit larger in magnitude. We looked at Ivgids, we looked at Truckee's, we looked at South Lake Tahoe's project that they have finished design on and are moving towards construction. One of the important elements of phase 2, particularly in that demographic study, was an understanding of what is the community capacity relative to best practices. If you live in the Kings Beach grid, Dollar Point is an equidistant drive to Incline. And so are they going to be interested in their own facility closer to the high school and middle school, or are they content just to drive to Incline? And so kind of understanding the demographics of the region was an important one, understanding utilization from our community of these neighboring facilities. We believe, based on the consultant's feedback, is that we wouldn't be overextending ourselves, that a rec center with our demographic and this driving distance, perhaps including Olympic Valley and Alpine Meadows, perhaps including the North Star community, is within a reasonable window and driving distance to our facility. And so that was one of the first steps, was to understand, even though it's not ours, is there already a large enough inventory of facilities like this that there won't be community appetite for it, or even best practice justification?
I don't think the effort in 2020 included Olympic Valley or North Star.
It did not.
At that point. Do you recall the results of that defeat?
It was, I won't be able to quote specific numbers. It was fairly close in the Tahoe City District, and it got soundly defeated in the North Tahoe District.
Right.
But we see changing demographics, and what I will say is, since that time, the region has grown up. So Truckee now has a comprehensive facility. South Shore is moving in that direction towards a comprehensive facility. Even Douglas County with their facility. And so I think there is a bit of, the others now have it, what about us? And so I think that is perhaps a driver.
Mm-hmm.
But again, what is really important is doing the analysis and understand the polling. What we've seen in the early phases is a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of positive feedback, but there is a bit of self-selection process that the most likely to support it are the most likely to get involved in the early stages of the process. So we need to understand the temperament of the non-participants, if you will, which is one of the reasons that we really want to do statistically valid polling and surveying in the community.
And to pass this, it has to reach what, 63% or?
Well, that's one of those ballot measure strategy questions. So
Okay.
if the two
I am
districts were to
familiar with
put
that,
it
too.
out, if the two districts were to put it out on the ballot, it would need to be a 2/3. At the moment, there is court findings that if it is a citizen-driven ballot measure, it may qualify for success with a simple majority. So that community advocacy group suddenly becomes much more important. That if it is a community advocacy group-driven ballot measure that says we want to tax ourselves in support of a recreation and aquatics facility, it goes from a 2/3 bar to a 50% bar. The 2000s effort was a 2/3 bar.
Right,
Right,
and that's tough to meet.
It's a difficult one.
right.
So you mentioned, what was it, 2 million to operate it annually? Do you have an idea of how much you would be able to make on the facility?
So the net operating cost, it's roughly a 50% cost recovery. So we think it's a $4 million operating cost that does compose some operating maintenance, capital maintenance component in that funding, and that operating fees and revenues can drive 50% of that. Now, the nature of an early phase planning study is to be conservative, so we drove the operating costs up, we drove the operating revenues down for the sake of, we don't want rose-colored glasses going out. We don't want to ask for not enough. And so it's by nature conservative.
And I was looking at the feasibility, I'm sorry, what's the name of this thing? It's got a big mouthful.
Yeah, the active recreation facility
Yeah,
needs
that's what it
assessment.
is. How's it being funded now, your expenses?
Yeah, it's a three-way split. So it's a $75,000 grant from Placer County on a net consulting cost of $225,000. And so the remainder is paid in share by Tahoe City and North Tahoe, so it's roughly a $75,000, $75,000, $75,000 split.
Gotcha.
Phase 3, we may pursue additional grant requests, but at a minimum, it'll be a 50-50 split between North Tahoe and Tahoe City.
Gotcha. Okay. Any more public comment? Or any public comment on this, commissioners? No?
So look for more.
Thank you.
More to come.
Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much. Okay. Okay, we have that item number 2, report on interpretive panels for Speedboat Beach.
Last but not least, I think the first thing that this informational item is to invite you to get up and look around at what we have done with the interpretive panels at Speedboat Beach. I want to give a shout out to Ted Rell, who has pulled it all together with our consultant Fallon Multimedia out of Reno, who I think has done a great job. So you can see, you toured, I think a year ago, the completion of the Speedboat Beach improvements. So we put a new restroom, nice Tahoe architecture style restroom, rusting steel stairway now down to the beach, new walkway. So it really looks, up to the quality that Lake Tahoe, that an internationally iconic destination of Tahoe should look like. And this is the final step. So this will be the completion of the project, is to hang the interpretive signs this year, and you can see that we've covered a bunch of different grounds with each sign telling one story from the Earth's geography. And I'm going to skip over and come back to the next one, but you'll see the wooden boats, the unique, gorgeous wooden boats of Lake Tahoe that are iconic, known throughout the world. The two of the panels dedicated to biology, the one there at the woods and wildlife, and the other one to the aquatic habitat. And then originally we had one cultural history panel that included Native American history, particularly Washoe, who are the dominant tribe of this area, as well as kind of westward migration, 1840s wagon trains, miners, that kind of thing. And really, I think decided that it's better to tell one story well than a whole bunch of stories in one panel that get watered down. And so we wanted to dedicate one to the Washoe tribe, worked with them. But then back over to this side, there's a story behind the Mark Twain panel, who got his own panel as well. And with that, I do want to introduce Dave Antonucci, who has spoken to your commission. And I think, how many of you remember last time we were in Tahoe and Dave Antonucci spoke to the commission? How many of you were here? So some of you were.
I've heard him.
But it's been a few years. It's probably been 3 or 4 years, and so that's kind of testament to how long this has been in the making. Dave published a book, and I actually, every time we come to a meeting away from the office, I know that I forget something, and that what I forgot is the book that you gave to the commission last time that I still have in my office that's available to any of you. Dave wrote a book about Mark Twain and his escapades in the Lake Tahoe Basin, and that became the information, the data set starter for that Mark Twain panel over there. Worked with Dave quite a bit on that panel, which is not the only one of its kind. You've been on a mission to put a whole series of panels along the route that Mark Twain has been in the Tahoe Basin. And so, Dave, if I could turn that over to you to recap, particularly for the folks who haven't heard your story yet, because it's been a few years. So if you take a couple minutes.
Sam Clemens, who became Mark Twain out here, came out to the Nevada Territory in 1861, and not having much to do, he decided he'd like to stake a timber claim at Lake Tahoe and sell the trees for the mines in Virginia City, and he hiked up with a friend from Carson City. And to make a long story short, he staked his claim in what is now Tahoe Vista, California, but through his own carelessness, he started a wildfire, which, according to his book, it burned all the trees up, but we know that's not true, like a lot of things in his book. And his book, Roughing It, provides a lot of information. He wrote some letters back home to his mother. But the places he described, if you knew Tahoe, you knew exactly what he was talking about. So there's about 7 different panels in 6 different locations that identify where he was and what he did or what he saw. So the first panel is up on the east shore above Tunnel Creek, right on the Flume Trail, bike trail. And that's where he first saw Lake Tahoe and called it the fairest picture the whole earth affords. And then this panel here commemorates what he called Upper Camp. He had a way with words. By upper, he meant tall mountains. That's the language he used, and which is what State Line Point is. And he camped there the first night, and that was his base of operations. And there's even a flat granite rock there that he mentions in a letter to his mother that he used it as a dinner table and to play cards and gamble using white beans. And then the picture you see there, the color picture, which is also the cover of my book, which is based on a painting by my wife, Jenny, illustrates a story he tells in the book about drifting over the large boulders off of State Line Point and saying they're as large as a village church, and describing how it gave him the feeling as though he was in a hot air balloon drifting over the terrain. So I put together just a number of agencies with the help of the North Tahoe PUD. We installed some panels last year at Sandy Beach and North Tahoe Beach, and at I believe Placer County Beach near Garwoods, and then this panel, plus there's 2 other panels in Nevada that mark locations. So I want to thank Ted and Andy for your cooperation and help. It's been a long haul with COVID in the middle of all this, but I appreciate their cooperation and their help and working with us to get this whole thing done. So we have now what's called the Mark Twain Timber Claim Adventure Trail, and that's what that little logo in the lower left denotes. All the panels that are associated with it have that logo.
Oh, cool.
So, any questions? Or?
Wow.
No, but if you haven't read Roughing It.
Or you could read this. This is
Oh, okay,
abridged.
but I mean,
You probably get a
I
little more.
finally read it this last
Available
summer.
at your local bookstores.
And what's the name?
It's
of
called Ferris Picture,
Oh, Ferris Picture. Oh, okay.
which is
Oh,
what
that's what he said.
Mark Twain called
Yeah.
Lake Tahoe, the Ferris picture of the whole earth affords. You've probably seen that.
Is
written
that
somewhere.
available on Amazon?
Available on Amazon, yes.
And it's available in my office, so by request, I am happy to loan it out to anyone of you who would like to read it.
Did Mark Twain go to the West Shore at all?
No.
No, okay.
No, he was on the North Shore, but most of the time he traveled on the Lake Tahoe wagon road that went over Spooner Summit and went up Kings Canyon at the time
Flume
and came
Trail.
down the East Shore and through South Lake Tahoe and on to Sacramento and San Francisco. And he did that trip half a dozen times at least, but never on the West Shore, even though, and that's why I wrote my book, is because all the chambers of commerce around the lake said, Mark Twain slept here, like George Washington slept here. Is that kind of, and I said, I'm going to figure this out, and found out that,
So he did indeed start a forest fire in Tal Vista?
yes,
So all the burned out big old cedars you see there, you see the burn spots in the
could
bottom?
be, yeah,
Is that his
could be
fire?
related to it, yeah. I'm still looking
I'll have
at
to look to
trees,
see if
and
I
we're looking
see
for
any
fire
initials.
scars. There's 2 panels at Sandy Beach on the lakeside that tell that story about the timber claim, and another one talks about the fire and kind of sets the record straight about how big the fire really was.
Right. Wow.
So a lot of fun for people, just one more thing for them to do when they come here that doesn't involve driving in a car necessarily around the lake, but. Okay,
Well,
thank you.
thanks to you.
Thank you, Dave. We intend to have these panels mounted before Memorial Day, and with that, that's really all.
Where are they gonna go exactly?
Speedboat Beach.
It's Speedboat Beach,
Oh, I
so
know,
along
but
the
then
walkway down, we
On the
have.
walkway down.
Yeah, we have pre-made frames for them that are down there waiting for these to be mounted.
Oh, they were installed when you built the
Yeah.
the paver path going down there?
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's a great spot. Might be a lot of water there this year.
There may not be too much beach, so people may need something to do other than walk along the beach. They can read signs.
Okay. Well, thanks, Dave. Okay, commissioner comments. Yay.
There are some folks in the Grant Bay area that would really like to work on trails. And I have been advising them that it's a long process. But they would like to get a bike trail down Eureka Road, so it's safe for bicycles to go on that. And they're calling it a safe route to school, and you may hear some other jargon thrown around, but but they're trying to improve some connectivity. But that's the big thing that's going down besides any work that the park folks are doing. And that's community-driven process, and I'm sitting in on it and trying to maybe hold back on the reins a little bit and guide them down the path because they'd like to see it done tomorrow, and that's just not going to happen.
How
I
big
don't
is
think.
that trail?
It's a couple miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and needs right of way and, just the normal wear and tear. And Andy knows about it, but it's just something that's being activated by the citizens in that area.
Good. Thank you for that.
Okay, up in my area, I'll talk about the Green Valley Trail, which most people don't realize is a county park, Green Valley parking lot and trail. It was a trail that was an old trail, an old mining trail, probably the natives used it. It's been rerouted a bit. Dick and Sally Toll, a couple who lived up there at the trailhead, deeded the county a conservation easement on 240 acres and a trail easement on that trail. And another woman granted a trail easement, and the county owned a piece of property on Moody Ridge Road, which is a public road. And so it kind of created a perpetual the preserved trail. A lot of the trails up there go across private properties, and we've been losing trails, from people developing it or closing them off and all that. So this is great. Well, the project was done through, the county project was done through the Placer Legacy Program, and so the lead person is a planning person, but we're doing some signage at the trailhead, information about the trail, about the history of the Green Valley and the area. And so I've been working with Casey at Parks, because he's the guy who installs the signs, the planning department, the museum department, and others, and we meet like once a month, and we're finally getting the timeline down, the photos we're going to use. And so it's kind of interesting to just see how a process like that, occurs. And that's why, the signs here, because we're trying to do signs just kind of like this there. And it sounds like we're going to end up putting up 2 signs, because you can't do the history and then do the information on the trail with the map. So, but it's just something that's going on within the county, one of our parks.
I'll add one piece of information you may not be familiar with, but Green Valley Trailhead is the only public recreation area in our system with special hours. It allows a 14-day stay, parking at that trailhead, because the bottom of the trail is BLM land that allows overnight camping up to 14 days. So in that one area, we follow suit and allow parking up to 14 days.
Of course, there's not a sign or anything like that, it's just Green Valley Trail parking, and so those might be some things we may want to be putting on the, well, it should be in the parking lot.
Yeah, I think we'd like to encourage people to tell us when they go down there and when they expect to be out, so.
And we've talked about putting in a logbook.
Yep.
Because I think that would benefit all the agencies, because if you get a fire like we had the mosquito fire, they had that place evacuated.
Right.
Green Valley Trail parking lot was closed. So,
Well, if you know somebody's there, you're better off.
well, right, but sometimes they you may know it if you see their car parked there.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you never know. And of course, there's usually squatters living down there, so,
Right.
well, that's, But anyway, it's just something I've been meaning to bring up, because we've been working on it for a few months.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to thank the Weather Committee. It was a pretty nice day to be out and about, so thank the Weather Committee. And I know that it takes a lot of extra work for us to meet remotely, but I appreciate the opportunity to be up here and the extra work that staff put together for that. And we had some wonderful presenters tonight. Thank you for the information.
Yeah, thanks for, giving me a reason to come up and see the lake and the snow and, great setting and enjoyed coming up.
Yep. And I'd like to thank the commissioners and staff who did venture up here, because it's risky. You make plans, you put all the pieces together, and the pieces can fall apart like that, like the last 3 months. So we were blessed. So thank you all for coming and making that effort.
And
Okay.
that there was a truck wreck on I-80 at Blue Canyon, and so,
Was that today?
yeah, once again today.
and today.
Both of
Yesterday.
them.
Different truck.
I don't know, maybe. They're all standing in a line down at Applegate waiting, and then as soon as they
Oh,
open
my.
it up, they haul ass.
Because it was so damn icy, right?
And then there's
Was
this
that what it
cold
was? 'Cause
spot.
there was that, 10-car pile up in Truckee yesterday.
Oh, geez.
And I was going, wow, it's clear, there's no snow. Well, no, there was big-time ice.
Yeah, right, it melts and then it freezes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, anyway, safe travels on the way home
Thank you.
tonight, you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, any additional public comment? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to adjourn this meeting.
Next meeting. Next meeting.
Oh, next meeting.
That would
Let's hope we can have one.
That'll be May, right?
So it would be May in Auburn, let's see. Beg your pardon for not having that right under.
Okay,
It
well,
would be May 18th
May
in
18th.
Auburn. Is it just a rough poll? We won't hold you to it, but does that initially look like it'll work for everyone?
It looks
All
like
right,
it'll work.
great.
yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.